Welcome, everyone, to the Strive for Good Life podcast. My name is Nino Piguera, and I'm here with Jordon Groves, personal trainer turned productivity coach. I'm so excited today because we've got lots of fun things to talk about. So welcome to the show, Jordon. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking to add some value to your viewers and get stuck into what we choose to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to add a lot of value just based on the last conversation we had. So let's go ahead and just jump right into your entrepreneurial journey. Where did you get started? What were those early influences in your life that made you want to go out on your own?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the early influences were definitely from my father. He was an entrepreneur himself, and he had his own business. And definitely the influence of seeing him driving nice cars, always had suits on. He was like a watch guy, like wearing nice watches and things. So that definitely had a big influence on me when I was younger. But the funny thing is I was more of a sports person myself, whereas my brother was entrepreneurial from a younger age. And so it took me quite a while to catch up. I remember my dad from an early age trying to get me to read these self-development books that he had in his library, because he had this library and one of it in his office room in the house. And I just didn't want to know. I had no interest whatsoever. I wanted to rebel against, what was I was being told to do. So my first obsession that I got into was basketball, and I felt like I was moving away from having a really strong connection with my father and having that relationship with him, because he didn't really like basketball, didn't know anything about it, and obviously basketball's not a big thing in the UK. So, but it was that was my first obsession and my first love. And when I look back at it now, I realize that it actually taught me a lot of skills, usable skills in the entrepreneurial field, like self-discipline, like being consistent, like being able to deal with failure, being able to build that the mental conditioning that you need to be able to take criticism and things like that. So I took so many lessons from basketball. Never got to the professional level. That was my be-all and end goal, but I got to semi-professional. When I look back now, I'm pretty proud of that, really, because I came from a small town in Wales where there wasn't even a basketball team. There's no coach or anything. So I'm pretty proud of that. So that my early influence, though, with entrepreneurialism was definitely my father. And I think it really started taking more of a shape as I got older. And then I got into personal training after I realized I wasn't going to make millions from playing basketball. So I felt like a natural progression to get into personal training, because I knew I wanted to help people, and I really enjoyed staying in shape and fitness and things like that. So I got into personal training, and then I quickly realized that the people that I was helping or trying to help, some of them would take the advice and run with it, and they'd get great results. And then other people would do take some of the advice, but then they had these really bad habits, or they had this really bad reaction to pressure in their life, or things that would go wrong in their life. They would result in them drinking alcohol, or would result in them just not eating the food schedule that we'd put together. So then obviously when it came time to take the measurements and things, the results were no good. And they would even lie to me and say that they'd followed everything, and and they didn't know why the results weren't there.
Wasn't their fault.
Yeah, it wasn't their fault. Yeah. So I just found this really frustrating, really frustrating. And because I wanted, these people were investing their time and money in me. And I just took that really personally. And I didn't want them to feel like they'd wasted their time with me. So that's when I realized, well, there's got to be something more to this. I tried shouting at them. I tried the hardcore militant approach and those tears and everything, but nothing would change. So then I tried the super soft approach and went really empathetic, and still nothing would change. So I thought, right, I need to learn some new skills here. So then I started learning about psychology, and then I had this aha moment where I realized that it was all to do with people's identity and who they believed they were, which is all tied into our childhood and the way that we're raised, and the conditioning that we have then, and the way that we see the world, and all the beliefs that we build. So once I realized this, I started learning and studying things like NLP, and I became an NLP practitioner, and then also an NLP executive coach. And then I quickly realized that once I started getting better results for my clients, and I could help them change their behavior, help them change who they believe they were, then I realized these skills are transferable into another industry. And that's when I realized that after 15 years of being a personal trainer, I wanted a new challenge. So then I started looking at, well, what other areas could I possibly go into with these skills? And I knew I really loved talking to entrepreneurs because I would always learn something from them. That was one reason. Two, they were very open-minded, and I loved talking about ideas. I still love talking about ideas now. And they were also solution-based, which again, I love. You know, I don't like complaining. I don't like moaning about something. I'm like, right, what action can we take to solve this problem? What's the point in suffering? Let's solve this problem as quickly as possible. And they had the same mindset. So I ended up interviewing, I think it was 25 entrepreneurs, and asked them a load of questions. And I was looking for patterns, recurring problems that they were having. I was looking for, right, what's the problem that I can make money to solve? And everything seemed to revolve around time. All the biggest problems seemed to revolve around time, not having enough time in the day, not being where they should be at this moment in time in their life, not having enough time to spend with family. It was always about time. So I thought, right, well, what's going to solve this issue with time? Whereas productivity. So then I started learning about productivity, and I felt like a lot of the skills I already had were basically revolving around productivity. I just hadn't labeled it that before. Because it was all to do with helping people change their behavior, self-discipline, being organized, setting up their calendar, knowing how to create a goal, knowing how to break it down into steps, knowing how to follow it and be consistent with it. So I was pretty much almost all the way there with the productivity stuff anyway. So that's what got me to that point of being a productivity coach. And then I've been doing that for the last 7 years now, which has been a huge part of my own entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I love it. So much to unpack there, right? You mentioned a couple of really key things that I want to get back to, but going back to even just the personal trainer days when you first started out, how did you? I'm curious as to how people really start with their business, right? Like those initial steps they take to get clients. Like, so what did that look like when you were, when you had the realization, like I want to help train people, or help them that way? How did that go from idea to, someone putting money in your pocket as a paying client? And what was that like trying to, make the transition there?
The transition from the personal trainer to the productivity coach?
Well, even before that, being a personal trainer, like how did you, I know you were doing basketball. So how did that, I guess that's where I'm trying to get to is how do you go from playing basketball to, hey, I'm now helping people and making money as a personal trainer?
I think for me, it felt like quite a natural progression because I already knew a couple of friends that had already became personal trainers, and they were doing very well. And I'd always kept myself in good shape. So they were always saying to me, because I wasn't quite sure where I was going to go to next, what pivot I was going to make. And up until this point, between finishing playing basketball and the personal training, I'd actually already tried a few different jobs. I tried managing a bar. I'd been in retail sales. I'd become a manager in retail sales, and I just didn't feel fulfilled in anything I was doing. And there was good opportunities and everything, but I just didn't feel fulfilled. I felt like it just wasn't the right path for me because fulfillment had always been a really, really big, important part of what I do. I just never felt natural to me to be doing something just for money and when you don't enjoy it. So I realized for me, that was really important. So that transition I remember it was still very difficult. I remember in the early days trying to get those first handful of clients. And I think the biggest obstacles to overcome was just the belief in myself, so that people would actually want to pay me. That's just, if somebody just getting into business, that is a huge mental hurdle that you have to overcome, because it's, our belief comes from when we've done something and we have experience in it. So then that's more of a knowing. So the belief is you have confidence in your own ability. You have confidence that maybe you've seen somebody else do it and you think, well, I've got everything they've got, so then therefore I can do it. So I had belief in myself, but even with that belief, and even though I was a very confident young man, I still struggled with going up to people in the gym and talking to them. So I think there's whatever industry you're in, there's always a big mental hurdle to overcome. And I think it's It's the rejection. It's trying to get comfortable with that rejection and not taking it personally. Once you realize that you or understand that you're taking it personally, and that's what's causing the procrastination, that's what's causing you to slow down and choose everything else other than what you should be doing, then you can start working on that. And it's about detaching away from what people say to you and just understanding that it's nothing to do with you as a person. It might just be the way that you've delivered the offer that you've got, or it might be the way that your body language, or it might be the way that the tonality of your voice, or it might be the way that you yourself are not a very good advertisement. Like, you have to take all these things into consideration. And I guess it's the same for everybody in whatever business you're in, especially if it's face-to-face, then, you always have to take into account, do I look presentable, and do I look like somebody that would be good at what I'm offering?
This is incredibly valuable stuff for anyone listening, because so many people, allow those fears to prevent them from just taking even the first steps. How did you, another issue that I've dealt with personally is knowing how to price my services, put a value to it, because we're so used to it. We come from this place of thinking that, we make X amount per hour, right? And now you have to completely shift to a different model and structure, I guess, if you want to call it that. And so that's like another piece that I find, attached to this as well. It's really knowing your value and being able to confidently, ask people for that amount, right? I don't know, was that a struggle for you at all, knowing how to price your services, or did you have pretty good models to go off of based on your friends and what everyone else was doing?
Yeah, it was a big struggle for me at the beginning, just because my relationship with money wasn't particularly healthy. I was I had never saved any money. I was the live for the moment type of person. And my relationship with money just wasn't very good at all. And so I really struggled at the beginning. I struggled asking for money. I would always leave the offer right until the end because I felt uncomfortable actually asking for the money. And again, it was because I was scared of rejection. And I would then perceive that as them not valuing me for the amount of money that I was asking for, which is obviously not a very nice thing to think about. So there's that part of it. And then the other part was I wasn't sure, I wasn't completely confident that I could actually get them the result, because I was brand new at it. So I was thinking, I know I can get myself the result, but what happens if they say they're not going to do it? Or what happens if they are not following one of the plans? Like, how do I get around that? So because I was brand new to it, I didn't have these answers. So that was causing a lot of confidence issues as well. And I think, again, that's relatable in any business. If you're scared that your customer's going to turn around and say, well, I've got this problem, how do I solve it? And you're not quite sure what the answer is, then obviously that's going to cause a lot of procrastination, because you don't want to find yourself in that situation.
Right. And then obviously there's that imposter syndrome that, makes it hard to actually move forward. I love that. It's really valuable stuff for anyone starting out. Okay. So let's talk about how that evolved into being a coach. So what were the limitations that you found, I guess? You talked about how easy it was to progress just based on your evolution, right? And the things that you were learning, and the results that you wanted to get your clients. I think that's so important, for anyone in business to continually want to improve the product or the service that they're delivering. And so it sounds like that's really where, all of this happened for you. The shift is seeking a better end result for your client. Is that about correct?
Yeah, 100%. You hit the nail on the head. And that's what I found, because I like to compare, and I like to look at statistics and numbers. And so from the personal training course that I went on, there was my friend and myself were the only ones that lasted over 10 years. And I think there was 27 of us on the course. And I think after only 5 years, I think about 90% had dropped off.
Wow.
And this is what I find in almost anyone that I know that is starting a business. If you don't have that burning desire to want to make the product as good as it can possibly be, if your only focus is just money, then you're never going to last. And because I find that when your passion is about the product, then usually your passion is about the person that's buying the product as well. And it's because you've got integrity in what you do. And one of your strongest values is that you can help to solve a problem for that person. Now, if your strongest value is just making the money, then for me, you're never going to last. And you're always going to feel a bit empty. You're always going to feel like maybe you're not onto the right thing. So for me, the passion and the obsession has to come from the product that you're on, the service that you're providing. And I think that's what really helped me, because I had this burning desire to constantly learn. Because when I had these personal training clients, when you're a personal trainer, people open up to you about their deepest, darkest secrets. They're telling you about affairs that they've had. They're telling you about all kinds of things. So with all these different problems, some people would have mental health issues. Some people would be alcoholics. Some people would have drug issues. Some people would be addicted to sex. Had all kinds of things said to me over that 15-year period. And every time a new problem was told to me, I wanted to help with that. So then I would go home and study it as much as I could, try to find some kind of fast-track way of helping them solve that problem, or helping them even just improve it slightly, and then maybe point them in the direction of an expert in that area. But I was just obsessed with trying to help them with every problem that they told me about. So I think that helped massively, because then once I found that I was improving their lives in all these other areas, then I was able to put my prices up, and I could articulate why the prices were higher than everybody else in the gym. And it got to the point where I was the most expensive PC in the whole gym.
Yeah. So it's this idea that you're continually increasing the value of what you're doing, because you understand it so much better, and are able to solve the problem in such a more thorough way, I guess. I think that's amazing. And I mean, just your drive to learn and understand and improve yourself. I imagine that some of that comes back, from your years in basketball, right? I mean, I've played sports in my life, and I can attribute a lot of my drive to improve myself, just back to that. But tell me about some maybe other ways. I mean, I know obviously, through your business and out of need for your clients, you've done that. But what are some other ways that you've kind of sought to, level yourself up, I guess, if that makes sense? It's an important piece.
Well, I think also just it's probably a bit of a crossover as well, but just to touch on what we just spoke about there, the main driving force that because obviously as a coach, I'm always self-analyzing myself, and I'm trying to understand the mechanisms that make people behave in a certain way. And then I'm always analyzing other people as well. And what I found is the driving force is always that we're trying to be a certain person so that we can be accepted by others. And when I say accepted by others, really all it means is that we all want to be loved. So we're all that child still trying to be accepted. So if you look, basically what I found as a coach is when I look into people's childhood, I just ask them a few questions. It's usually pretty obvious that they're still trying to be that child that had to act in a certain way to get love off one of their parents. So for one of your parents, you have to always be dressed smartly, you have to always sit up on time, you have to always get straight A's in school. And when you find that person as an adult, they still have that driving force to be, really strong driving force to be exactly the same. They'll always be dressed perfectly, they'll always turn up on time, and that person will always be trying to get straight A's in their career, for whatever that looks like, because they're always trying to be accepted, and they're always trying to be that person that they feel is enough, is finally enough. And we all have that driving force from childhood, and I know that's still my driving force now, is because I'm still trying to prove to my father that I'm worthy enough of his love.
That's so interesting. Especially that it's your father, even though, you wanted to rebel against that. That's interesting. Okay. How do you, obviously, there are positive elements of having a driving force that stems from childhood experiences or, connections with parents. On the negative side though, how do you break that down? I mean, if there are things that are holding people back as a result of that.
Yeah, I think you just have to, what I always do when I'm coaching somebody is look at when pressure is applied. And when I say pressure, I just mean if something goes wrong in that person's life, then they feel pressure, stress, or anxiety, or there's a big challenge that arises. Whenever those things are in somebody's life, then you see their coping mechanisms or their self-sabotaging behaviors. Because let's say you go through a breakup, then we go into this self-nurturing mode, and that self-nurturing mode is often pretty much always the same coping mechanism that you've had as a child when you would be hurt. And so it might be that, let's say somebody's running their own business and they're doing really well, they're making loads of progress, everything's looking really good, and then they go through a breakup and then they just self-sabotage the whole thing. And this can be a mixture of, obviously everybody just needs time to process what's happened when they go through a relationship. Obviously that's just normal. But then there's also, let's go to something less extreme than a breakup. Let's just say everything's going really, really well, and then when it comes time to them launching their business or trying to sell their first product, they start feeling the pressure. Like, what happens if this doesn't work? What does that mean? What does that say about me? And then sometimes they'll sabotage the whole situation. Like, they'll find reasons to not launch, or they'll find problems, or if they can't find a problem, some people even create a problem. Like, when they'll launch the next day, maybe they'll go out the night before and they'll tell themselves, oh, I just need a couple of drinks just to ease the nerves. But really, they know full well it's going to impact how they feel tomorrow. And then that's going to give them an excuse as to why it didn't work out. Oh, it's because I drank the night before. So then they don't have to accept responsibility. So these are the things that I look for as a coach, is what are the self-sabotaging behaviors that used to be okay when you were a child, that used to be coping mechanisms in the way that you would act, and how have they transformed, or how have they now, as an adult, not serving you, and they become self-sabotaging behaviors.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I just looking back at my life, and I've definitely been in those moments where I felt the pressure and self-sabotage for a number of reasons. So how do you reprogram yourself? I mean, so you mentioned NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, right? Is that one of the techniques, or what, how do you help people overcome that specifically?
Yeah, sometimes I use it as a technique, but I find just having a conversation and just the power of suggestion, because I think a big part of these behaviors is we're not even aware of them. We're not even aware of what's really happening. We're just acting on how we feel. But then when you work with a coach that's able to see these things, then it can say, well, everything was going great, and then you decided to do this, this, and this, and then everything's not great. So why do you think that you behaved in that way? And then obviously they'll say, oh, because I felt pressure, and I was worried about if it was going to fail, what that meant to me, what that meant to my business, what that said about me. Does it mean that I'm a failure? These are the things that cause us to act differently when everything's going great. So through a conversation, I get them to, first of all, build self-awareness that it actually exists, and they're the ones that have created the outcome. So that's first, self-awareness. Then it's accepting responsibility for their behavior. And that's a big one, because a lot of the time people want to blame other people, or they want to blame outside situations, or the economy, or lack of resources, whatever it might be. People want to blame anything except self-responsibility. And then the next stage then is them understanding that they don't need to blame themselves. They just need to accept responsibility. And that's a big difference, because a lot of people feel like they have to then blame themselves, and they go into this self-hate mode. So they go from one extreme to the other, from self-nurturing and self-sabotaging to then self-hate, and then again almost self-sabotaging again. And they feel that they have to keep beating themselves up, when really, it's like I love stoicism. So when I'm working with men in particular, I'll always say to them, listen, like, the best approach to this type of situation is a stoicism approach, where you don't really need to have any kind of emotional reaction to it. Just see it for what it is. So when something goes wrong, rather than you having a big emotional reaction and saying, oh my God, if I fail, then it's going to mean that I'm a failure. Or if it doesn't work out, it's going to mean that I'm incapable of making this work. No, it doesn't mean any of that. It just means that you've come to the first challenge, and there's going to be many, 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 many challenges, many, 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 many failures. You have to be able to deal with this as part of maturing as a business owner. So once they start understanding this, and they can get their head around that, they don't have to put negative meanings into failure. They don't have to put negative meanings into things that don't work out. All you have to do is look for the lesson right, what is this situation trying to teach me? Because I didn't get the outcome I wanted, so where's the lesson? And then the second one is, what action do I need to take to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And then third one is, is there anything that I can do to still get the outcome that I want from this specific situation?
I love that. I mean, you've clearly, it's a process that you've outlined that sounds like it really changes people's lives, and sounds like you're really good at what you do. So this is really, really valuable stuff, and I can see why people work with coaches like you, specifically with productivity and what you do. That's amazing. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you faced, because I know in our call last time you mentioned a few specifically. So how have you overcome the challenges with your business?
Yeah, I mean, one of them for me was marketing, and I found that I was putting out great content, but it wasn't really speaking to my target market. And the issue I had with that was I wasn't quite sure who my target market was, because sometimes I was working with men, sometimes I was working with women, sometimes I'd be 40, sometimes I'd be 20, and the scope was all over the place. But I deep down, I did know who my target market was. I think it was just, again, resistance to wanting to hone in, again, in case it didn't go, in case I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. And then if I didn't get the outcome that I wanted, what am I going to go back to the same situation again and then still be frustrated? So there's always the fear of the outcome, the fear of failure, and the fear of, well, what am I going to do next if it doesn't work out? That's what always seems to stop us, and that's what was stopping me as well. So obviously, as a coach, this is why I have to constantly analyze myself as well, because I'm by no means perfect. There's always things that I'm going to be working on. There's always challenges I'm going to have, and I believe there's always room for all of us to grow. So one of the challenges for me was marketing. So I've been working on that a lot over the last couple of years, and just really honing in on what my message is as a coach, so that I can speak directly to my target market. And since I started doing that, then I've started attracting a lot more men, which I just as a man, I just prefer working with men. And since I started doing that, then I've started attracting a lot more men to work with. And since I've changed my message slightly and the way that I deliver that message through social media, then that's improved a lot as well. And then more recently, I've been learning a lot more about advertising, because I've never had to use ads for the last 7 years. I just used word of mouth, because my attitude is, if I can get great results from my clients, then obviously there shouldn't be any issue with asking them for names of other business owners. And that's what I've done up to this point. But now I want to start veering off and pivot into other areas. So I need some consultations coming in without me having to put in as much effort in one specific area.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so touched on a couple key things right there, specifically with kind of niching down. I think a lot of people get hung up because they think, well, any client is better than no client, right? I want to make money. So they leave it open to kind of anyone who walks through their door. And so I think it's really important that you pointed out that you actually started increasing the number of clients you were getting, right? When you narrowed down. That's incredibly valuable for anyone listening to consider. And then so the other part now is that you're pivoting and you're now transitioning and needing to run more ads, and you're learning other skills, or other mechanisms of marketing. Is there anything else that's really caught on, or have you already started seeing success with ads? I'm just curious about that.
No, yeah, I'm still in the early stages, to be completely honest. So I'm still testing to see what works. So I definitely haven't found the golden ticket just yet. So I'm going to keep experimenting, but I've had some great advice and I've learned a lot about it. So I feel like I'm almost there now. I feel like I've got the right pieces. I just haven't got them in the right places.
Yeah. But word of mouth so far has been amazing for you, it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, it's given me this lifestyle that's allowed me to travel around the world for the last 3 years. So, it's worked very well in that respect. But like I said, I'm looking to pivot now and start an online academy and everything. So I need some consultations coming in without me having to put in as much effort into the marketing and trying to get the word of mouth.
Yeah, I think this is key for people to understand as well, right? So it's essentially you're trying to create greater leverage in your life, right? Because you're doing a lot of one-to-one, and I'm assuming that this academy is probably going to shift to a one-to-many type of model where you're servicing a lot more people at once. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where you can start really increasing, the margins of your service, right? Really make a lot more money when you shift to another model. What are some of the other challenges? I know marketing was a big one, and you've figured out how to overcome that. You're in the process of that. Anything else that's really, been a pain point in your business as you've been in business for a long time. So maybe there are many, I don't know.
Yeah, I think another pain point was, again, just to do with the niche and just figuring out, because I, in terms of enjoyment on who I enjoyed working with, there's quite a few different characters. So I believe in paying for coaches myself as well. So I paid for a coach and I went through a process with him where he got me to write down and even draw different characters of my perfect target market. So I had like 4 or 5 different characters, and I found that very, very difficult, because one thing that I really enjoyed about not being too niched was the variety of people that I worked with, because I was working with everyone from YouTube channel business owners to people that owned an electrician and plumbing company. So it was just they were so wide, and I really enjoyed that, because I would be learning something new all the time about a different business and a different industry. So I found that quite exciting. So I found that very difficult to try to niche down to one specific industry, and it got to the point. Now this was not too long ago, so it got to the point where I was thinking, do I niche down on this, or do I make a pivot? And I've decided to make a pivot instead and go with the academic.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it sounds like it's going to work out for you. Let's talk about how, so one of the things, about this show is that we like painting this picture of the types of freedom that you can create through entrepreneurship. So let's talk about, your lifestyle. You mentioned, that you've been able to travel around the world. Let's touch on that and what you've been able to do as a result of being your own boss.
Yeah, sure. So all of my coaching used to be face-to-face, and I was based in Manchester in the UK, in England. And for me, for a long time, I knew I didn't want to live in the UK, because I was just sick and tired of the rain and grey skies. So Manchester, the city, amazing city. I lived in London, lived all over the UK, and Manchester's still my favourite. So great city, but just the weather for me just had such a big impact on my mood, and I knew I wanted to live somewhere tropical. But again, it was that fear of, well, what happens if I go out and try it and it doesn't work? I'm going to have to come back with my tail between my legs, and it's going to be embarrassing. And I just, I guess that stopped me for years. And then the pandemic kicked in, and that was kind of the push that I was looking for, really, because once the pandemic came, they opened or came out of lockdown for a little while, so flights were running again. So then I decided to start my journey. Then, obviously, probably not the best time to start the journey of traveling while all that was happening, but I decided to start then anyway, and I started in Portugal, and I went from just face to face to 100% online. So obviously I was really worried about that. I was really nervous, and a few of my face to face clients, they went straight onto online, so that gave me some money coming in straight away. And then that's when I started putting a lot more effort into my social media and my videos. I started learning a lot more about videos and how to get a hook, how to deliver the content in videos. And that sent me on a completely different type of journey then, of learning how to create and maintain an online business. And I was in Portugal for 2 months, I think it was. And then I went over to Mexico and ended up spending about 1.5 years in Mexico. And then from Mexico, I was in Colombia for a while. And then once everything started calming down, I went into the States, back out. And then I went back to the UK to see family. And then I've just done all of Southeast Asia. And then I'm currently in Bali now.
Wow. So you mentioned something interesting last time on our call, the place that you're staying. Tell us a little bit about that and what's unique about it.
Yeah. So I'm staying in a very cool place at the moment. So it's a house, and it's called the Lost Creator House. And it's basically for content creators like influencers and entrepreneurs, coaches and things like that. So I've come here because I was looking for, usually I just rent an Airbnb and I'm on my own all the time. and I just found it to be very isolating. I realized what I've missed really from since the basketball days, I've missed massively is being part of a team and being around other like-minded people. So I've been wanting that for years and years, and it's been on my mind to try and find something where I'm around other entrepreneurs and I'm living with them as well. I've seen it on TV a couple of times, but never really heard about anything that you could just turn up to and be a part of. And then I heard that this place was in Bali. And so I inquired about it. And then I had a friend that also knew about the place, and he was talking about it. He said he'd been here as well. So then I came here, and there's 16 people living here at the moment. And we've got a swimming pool, we've got a rooftop gym, we've got a co-working space, and the ocean is like 5-minute walk that way. And you can also see the ocean this way. And I've just had some really valuable conversations since being here. And with it being full of content creators, they're amazing at editing and filming videos. So I've had some great advice in that area. And then I've also met a couple of other people that are business owners, and we've had some great conversations. We've just agreed to do a podcast. So yeah, it's just been really, really valuable. And some of the most valuable parts are not even, obviously it's the conversations, obviously it's learning, but it's having that support and that tribe-like feeling of being part of something when everybody has similar goals, everybody's driven, everybody's ambitious, everybody's trying to achieve something, and everybody's happy to share, skill share, happy to share their problems, and everyone's trying to help one another. And it's made me realize how powerful this situation really is. So it's made me really, really want to create something myself.
Yeah, I love that. It's so powerful, like you said, use that word, to put yourself around other like-minded individuals, right? And there are other ways of doing that. There are mastermind groups and things like that. You can find mentors, but this is taking it to another level, it sounds like. And I'm in some regard jealous that I don't get to be there. But it just sounds fascinating, and I think that's definitely a fast track to leveling up your skills, or I don't know, maybe even in the motivation, right, to continue to create and make things happen on your journey, to kind of be forced right into a situation where everyone else is doing it, everyone else is moving forward. So that's really cool.
There's actually a couple of people here I've got some healthy competition with, and they say, well, how many videos have you done today? Or you said you do this, and this. Did you do them all? Oh, you did? Oh, I've done this, and this. So we've got some really healthy competition going at the moment, and I'm ultra competitive, so I love it. So it's helping me really focus, zone in on what I'm doing.
Yeah, they're keeping you accountable. I love that. That's such a key part of it as well. I love that. Okay, so moving forward, you mentioned the academy. Are there other things that you want to do with, your business that you're planning and looking at too?
Yeah, I mean, I've started writing a book, so I'd love to finish that. It's definitely not a process I've enjoyed at all, but but I'd like to finish that at some point. And then I think that there's so many ideas I've got. I'm an ideas person, and I used to cause, you're asking about problems. So that's one that's just coming to my mind now. That used to cause a lot of problems. We call it the shiny object syndrome, where you have an idea, and because it gets you excited, and the business that you've been working on has been causing problems because you're having to learn new skills and you're not getting immediate results from it. So it gives you this massive dopamine hit, and you get all excited about it. So that's what would happen to me. I'd go from one idea to another idea to another idea, and I would research the idea. I'd find the competition, and that slowed me down for so many years, where I'd just be going from one idea to another idea to another idea. And then finally I thought, right, I need to get this under control. So now I have a book that I write everything down in. So if I have another $1 million idea that I think of that gets me super excited, I'll just write it in the book, and I'll say, right, once I've done what I'm focused on at the moment, and once I've got it to a level of success that I'm happy with, then I'll invest some time and money into one of these ideas that I've got in this book. And then that allows me to carry on focusing and carry on moving forward on what I'm doing.
I love that. I think that's a very practical way of dealing with that, because I found that in my life as well, right? I've come up with a lot of ideas, and it's you don't want to lose them, right? So it's tempting to just act on it really quickly, but writing it down and saving it for later, I think is awesome. That's good advice for many that struggle with that. Okay, so let's talk about your USDC method. That's what you mentioned last time. Tell us a little bit about that. And
So I was looking for, over the years working as a productivity coach, I was looking for some sort of approach or some sort of method that I could put together based on the biggest problems or the biggest challenges that I see in people when it comes to being productive and when it comes to being consistent with their productivity. So I found that there was 3 key areas, and it's probably not what people are thinking. So one of them was urgency, or having a lack of urgency. The other one was self-discipline. So again, just having a lack of self-discipline, because people that are consistent, they have self-discipline. And then the third one was clarity. There just seemed to be a lack of clarity with every single person I've coached. I've not met a single person yet that has what I call crystal clear clarity on what their goal is, how they're going to achieve it, and when they want to achieve it by, which sounds really simple to any business owner, but people just don't seem to have clarity on it. They have a rough idea, and it seems to, I don't know why, but seems to be, people seem to be content with just having a rough idea of what the goal is, why they're working towards it, when they're going to achieve it by, and have it broken down into daily actionable steps. That's one of the biggest missing keys that I see in people being productive, is they might have it broken down into a monthly target and even a weekly target, but then they won't have it broken down into specific, I call them golden tasks. So with the people that I work with, they start on one golden task each day, and it has to be done the very first thing that they do in the morning. So it's not just the top priority of their to-do list. It's something that we've gone over together, and it's quite often something that's out of the box thinking, and it's a way that's it's a faster way, not necessarily a shortcut, but just a very efficient way of them getting the result that they want in a shorter space of time.
Okay, really fascinating. When you were talking about that, the fact that people often did not have extreme clarity, it almost sounded like a commitment issue. Because once you break it down and label it and put dates on it, then you're committed to that. And if you don't live up to it, then it becomes a failure, right? So that's fascinating to me. Okay. Was there another piece that I missed? Did you mention all 3?
Urgency, self-discipline, and clarity.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the first 2 were okay. Makes sense. I think that's powerful to have the method. Man. Okay. I just realized that I had another talking point on here that I totally glossed over. You were a TEDx speaker. Tell me about that, because that's fascinating. Not a lot of people can claim that.
Yeah. So that was so between the productivity coaching and the personal training, I got into public speaking when I was still a personal trainer, because I was still undecided on how I could go into another industry. So I got really into, as I'm sure a lot of people have, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, a lot of the American speakers, and I would listen to them, and I would always learn something, and I felt inspired. I felt extremely motivated, and I thought, wow, this feeling is really strong because it's causing me to change my behavior. It's not just like some of the motivational videos that are around these days where you feel good for 30 seconds and it's kind of gone, because it's not really teaching you anything. It's just saying, hey, you need to do this and you need to do that. Whereas when I would listen to Tony Robbins and Les Brown and people, then they'd be teaching you something. So I thought, right, I want to do that. And so I got into public speaking, and then I quickly realized that the creme de la creme, almost, that kind of gave you like a badge of honor to wear, would be if you become a TEDx speaker. So I started just improving my skills, and then it's strange the way it happened, really, because I was a big believer in vision boards. I haven't used them for a while now, but I still believe in having something visual is very important. And so I had this vision board, and I'd made this picture of me talking to a big crowd, and I put the TEDx logo on this vision board. And 2 weeks after doing that, I had this girl contact me on Facebook saying, "Hey, I see that you're a coach. I want to become a coach. Would you be open to meeting for coffee and maybe give me some advice?" And I'll be honest, at first I had loads going on. I thought, oh, I'm a bit busy at the moment, but then I remembered what it was like for me when I was first starting out. I would have loved somebody that was at my level then, even though I wasn't even in the, 100% coaching realm at that point. I was still a personal trainer, but I'd had 13 years experience up to that point. So I'd learned a lot about behavior. I thought I would have loved somebody to give me their time and be able to help me. So I thought, right, do something nice and do a bit of charity work. So I went to go meet her, and she asked me loads and loads of questions. And some of the questions I was thinking, this is a bit strange. It feels more like she's gathering information for like an
interview.
Yeah, like an interview. So I started thinking, oh, is something else going on here? So I got a bit paranoid. Like, is she trying to set me up for something? Is she doing some kind of article on personal trainers and how maybe what they say doesn't work or something? She's trying to set me up on something. So I started getting a bit suspicious. And so then I started asking her loads of questions. And then she finally came out with it and said, "Oh, well, the reason I'm actually asking you lots of questions is because myself and 2 of my friends have just got the okay from TEDx, the company, to put on our own event. So we saw that you were a coach, and I wanted to just give you the initial interview to see if maybe you could be a candidate. And would you be interested?" And I said, yeah, definitely. I've just put it as one of my goals.
Wow.
And so she said, "Oh, well, this was just kind of like a soft interview, so you have to have another one with my 2 partners." And so we did that. And then they said, "Yep, we'd like you to be one of the speakers." And then I became one of the speakers. And yeah, so I delivered the TEDx talk, and I did it was called The Inner Mentors, which is what the book is about. And it's about how to be your own mentor, and how I created characters for each area of people's lives, where I had a character for spirituality, had a character for health and fitness, had a character for self-discipline, had a character for mindset, and then it had a character for that was based on the author, meaning that you can just change your story whenever you want, which is all based on our belief systems. So I had different characters for different areas and explained how they would work and explained how you can have this yourself. So, which is basically just another way to articulate and develop and deliver self-development, but I just wanted to do it in a unique way.
Yeah, I love it. Is the talk on YouTube at all? Can you look it up and find it?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that out. And for anyone listening, yeah, you'll have to look up Jordon and check that out as well. That's incredible. I mean, talk about manifesting, your dreams. I mean,
yeah,
just 2 weeks. I mean, that's lightning fast that came to pass. I mean, that's amazing. And it shows the power of leaving yourself open to opportunity, right? Because I think most people, like you said, they have a lot on their plate, and they wouldn't, necessarily. I mean, they probably get a million requests, to share their time, and the fact that you saw the opportunity, you saw, the value, that you wanted to give to this person. I mean, I'm in a similar boat where, looking back, man, I would have loved to be able to connect with someone that had years of experience to shortcut my path. And so the fact that you want to do, in a sense, do some charity and give back, I think that's powerful. And good things always come when you are serving, or you come from a position of wanting to serve others, I think. So I really like that.
I'm a big believer in that. And I always think I'm not doing enough to serve others. I'll say I'm doing enough with my clients, but then I'm always thinking I need to do more, because I've got some friends and they do a lot of charity work. So they're always giving me a healthy reminder when I see what they're up to. So I'm a big believer in that. You should always give your time in service to someone else or something else.
Yeah, I love that. I believe that as well. And we all need healthy reminders of where we can do better with that. That kind of leads me to the next question. What are some other ways, unexpected benefits that you found that come from being your own boss, being an entrepreneur?
Well, there's lots of challenges and things that are not benefits, that's for sure.
Yeah,
because it's definitely not an easy road. But yeah, some of the benefits are obviously the freedom. Again, it depends on which part of your journey you're on, because you could be on a part of your journey where there's zero freedom, and I've been there lots of times where there isn't any freedom, and you're struggling to just pay the bills. So I've been there a lot of times myself. So yeah, but at this point now, then I would say the freedom. One thing that I love about the freedom is it's not even the lifestyle that I've got now, but just the freedom of choice. That's what I really love, and that's what I would really struggle with when I worked for somebody else. So it wasn't just that those jobs I mentioned earlier were unfulfilling. It was that it was lack of choice. I remember I worked in as a retail manager in a clothes store, and I wanted to change the mannequins because I felt like they weren't speaking to the public, because we were in a town in Wales and they're dressed like for people in London. And I thought people around this area don't have the same fashion sense as people in the major city of London. So we need to change the mannequins, and then we'll make more money. But obviously, because it was a huge company across the whole UK, and obviously they just weren't open to that idea at all. And that was just another thing that really agitated me, because I wanted to be able to change things that I felt would help the company and help make more money. So that's one of the things that I value the most about being self-employed, is the freedom of choice. You can change the business, you can change what you offer whenever you want.
Yeah, I love that. I've often felt that as well. I mean, in past jobs that I've had, I wanted to do things differently, and always there was so much red tape, right? And you felt powerless. And I don't like being in that position of feeling powerless, or like other people have control over my the limit that I can reach, right? And so
I think that comes down to you understanding your value as a person, and then you feeling like, is that value being utilized? And if that value is not being utilized, it's demoralizing.
Yeah,
really demoralizing. And then
absolutely.
You end up with a situation where you're acting like a robot on a daily basis. So you're doing something that you don't feel fulfilled in. You don't feel valued because your boss has basically told you that your idea is not going to happen, or it can't happen for whatever reason because of red tape. And then you're just going back to the same situation. You can see all these areas to improve, but yet your value is not being utilized. And you have to just kind of almost tone that down. And that for me was just, I felt like that was a non-negotiable. I felt like if I did that, I felt like my character would die, and then my body would die later on when I was older.
Yeah, that definitely seems to crush your spirit and stuff, right? Okay. You mentioned earlier that there were some not so great benefits of being an entrepreneur. So my question would be, for anyone starting out, I mean, what are the things to avoid, on the path of being an entrepreneur? Or if, maybe to reframe it a little bit, if you had to go back and do it all over again, what would you do differently?
I think the biggest thing I would do differently was not my decisions, because they ultimately helped me change my behavior. And do you know what? I was about to say I would change the way that I reacted to things, but again, to be honest, I don't think I would change anything, because the bad decisions that I made caused so much pain and suffering that forced me to then change, and it gave me the motivation needed to then get to the next stage and to learn what I needed to learn. Because the problem is with when you're a business owner, if everything's smooth sailing and you only have small problems, there's no real motivation there to grow. There's no real motivation other than just make a bit more money. There's no real motivation to change and learn and to make a better product or to deliver a better service. Whereas let's say you make a bad decision and you run out of money and you can't pay your rent that month. That hurts so much that you strongly consider, like I did many times over the years, you strongly consider just going back to the 9 to 5 and just getting a normal job instead of just trying to be a business owner. And but what helps with that is once you realize that it's built into your DNA and you just can't do it that 9 to 5 because you kind of, something's changed in you and you can no longer do that. Once you become comfortable with that, then no matter how much suffering you go through, no matter how much pain you go through, you know that the only option for you is to be a business owner. So I think for me, honestly don't think I would change anything, because even the ones that were really painful, like I said, they're the ones that ultimately made me or created the fastest progress for me, because I whatever the amount of time was that where I kind of went into that self-nurturing mode and was feeling sorry for myself and then started procrastinating. However long that lasted for, the pain would get worse and worse and worse and worse. And then finally, it would almost act like an elastic band. So finally, you get backed into a corner, and then you say, right, enough's enough. I'm going to do something about this. And when you make that decision, there's so much built up frustration, so much built up anger even, and you can really use that energy. Then you go flying forward, and you go so fast that you do end up achieving more than you would usually achieve in a month. And you can do that in like the span of a few days sometimes, or a week. Or
Yeah, that's interesting. That's fascinating to put it that way. And yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It can be powerful to put all of that frustrated energy into something, into a path forward. Okay. So I love your answer, because, oftentimes people are wanting a shortcut, and a lot of the time there is no shortcut. You have to figure it out, whatever, way or shape or form that takes, right? You just have to find a way forward. And often it's going to be a challenge. But if there is anything that you could, maybe any kind of advice to avoid pitfalls for people, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely say one of them would be, if I was to change anything, I would say I would work harder.
Okay.
From reading a lot of these books and things like the 4-Hour Work Week, and I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss. I listen to him all the time. But I read like the 4-Hour Work Week, and I interpreted that as I don't have to work very much. I don't have to do many hours. And so that's one thing I would change. If I was going to change anything, I would have put more time in, more hours, more effort. But without going ridiculous, because some people do get to the point where they're doing 12-hour, 16-hour days all the time continuously. And then obviously you're going to burn out at some point, or even worse, you're going to have some kind of health condition. So you do have to find a balance. I call them sprints. So with some of my clients, sometimes we're working and I just say, listen, you didn't do what you were supposed to do last week. So you're going to have to go on a sprint now. And that means you're going to have to do a couple of hours extra every day, all this week. And it's because you didn't. Yeah, it's because you weren't accountable to yourself last week. You didn't follow my instructions. And this is just what you need to do to hold yourself accountable. If you're going to sacrifice not doing something, then you have to be willing to sacrifice your time in the future. So I would say, but going back to the point, yeah, I would say I would work harder, and maybe I would change some of the beliefs that I had. So some of the beliefs that I had were things like you only have to do a few hours a day. It's about working smarter, not harder, which I definitely believe in. And I still say that to my clients now. It's about working smarter, not harder, because it is. But my interpretation of that was I only have to work 2 or 3 hours a day. And so that many times that had a very negative impact on my business, because what would happen is everything would be going really, really well, lots of money coming in. And then all of a sudden I'd start having these ideas of, well, I've done it. I've solved all the problems now. I only need to do 2 or 3 hours a day. And then, sure enough, it didn't last as long as I thought it was going to last. And then one problem pops up. And because I'm only putting in 2 or 3 hours a day, then things started falling apart. So that happened multiple times before I was willing to accept that I couldn't just do 2 or 3 hours a day. I had to do more, at least in the building phase anyway, at least in the building phase.
Yeah. So it's almost work harder and smarter, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's a perfect point to end on. Where can people connect with and work with you?
Yeah, sure. So mainly on social media. So my Instagram is at Jordon Coach Groves. So that's my main account that I use. I'm also on Facebook and YouTube as well. So YouTube, I've just started putting some bit more time and energy into now. So that's pretty new, the videos that I've got on there. But the main account, if they wanted to follow me and see daily content going out, then it's Instagram.
Perfect. And then you have the program, right? The USDC method. Do you want to tell people where they can find that as well?
Yeah, sure. So it's a 90-day program for business owners, and we focus on that USDC method. We choose a goal. So I say to them, right, what would be, because again, a lot of the business owners I work with don't have a 12-month goal. You know, it's a rough goal. Like, well, I want to earn more money, I want to be more successful than last year, but there's no clarity around it. So I say to them, right, what would be, if you had to give a specific answer, what would be a 12-month goal? And it's usually based around money. And then I say to them, right, okay, well, let's see if we're going to achieve that in 12 weeks. So then we'll break everything down. We'll see if it is achievable, because it's not always achievable. It's all based on where their business is at. Obviously, if their business is in the early stages, then if they've got some grand, big financial goal, then it might not be achievable. But we can still achieve a very nice goal in 12 weeks. But for some of the business owners, they've doubled their income within that 12, because that was their 12-month goal. They want to double their income. And I said, well, let's see if we can do it in 12 weeks. And their face was probably the same as a lot of people listening now, where they had a smirk on their face, just like, this doesn't sound like it's very achievable. But then once I started breaking it down, and we broke it down together, and we said, well, what would need to be in place? What resources would you need to have? Who would you need to contact? How much of your target market would you need exposure to? Once we started asking all the right questions, then all of a sudden it became very believable. And then for some of those people where we had that goal, they achieved doubling the monthly. They achieved doubling their monthly income within 12 weeks.
I love that. It sounds like a powerful program. Thank you so much for being on the show. Oh, did you have?
So yeah, just going to say, yeah, if they want to contact me, then the best thing is, I've got an email and everything, but best thing is through social media, to be honest. So just through Instagram, if they want to. There's a link on my Instagram, and it has a few links within that, and it'll send them to my YouTube, which has a breakdown of what's involved in the program. So then they can watch that. It's like a 15-20 minute video, and then if they're interested, then they can just shoot me a message then after that.
Perfect. We'll have a lot of those links in the show notes as well, so people can find them, wherever you're watching or listening to this. Thank you so much for being on the show. I feel like I could talk to you forever. You've got so much, wisdom and so many insights that I feel like we could easily do a few more hours of this. But thank you so much for your time, Jordon. For everyone listening, thank you so much for taking your time to support the show. Please, share this content with as many people as possible, and of course, subscribe on whatever platform you're tuning in on. And thank you so much again, Jordon, for being here.
Hey, Nino, thanks for having me, and everyone listening, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.